Good morning. My name is Michael Hinojosa. I'm the interim chair for the Dissolution Committee. At this time, we do have a quorum of this committee, and the meeting has been duly posted. Good morning and welcome to the Dissolution Committee meeting appointed by the Comptroller of Public Accounts for the state of Texas. Please stand and join us in the pledge, moment of silence and the Pledge of Allegiance. Please. Thank you. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You may be seated. Typically at this time, the chair would introduce members of the committee, but I'm going to ask, starting with Robert Ransford, to introduce yourself, and you're here on behalf of either an appointed position appointed by the controller or the commissioner or representing the school district. So that's how we'll start our introductions. We'll start with you, Robert Ransford.
Mr. Hinojosa, my name is Bob Dransfield. I'm here as an appointee as a bond lawyer from the comptroller.
My name's Chuck Yapel. I've worked with public schools during my career in public accounting and am an appointment from the comptroller.
Dr. Hinojosa, I'm Derek City Superintendent of Lido ISD. I'm appointed by the comptroller.
Good morning. I'm Sandra Hayes, Assistant Superintendent representing Richardson ISD.
Good morning. Brent Ringo, Assistant Superintendent representing Highland Park ISD.
Good morning. Greg Buchanan. I'm the Chief Operations Officer representing Lancaster ISD.
Good morning. Mike Moses, appointment by the comptroller, the recommendation of the Commissioner of Education.
Hi, I'm Jose Aparo, Superintendent of Schools, Irving ISD.
Good morning. Kelly Spencer, Assistant Superintendent representing Cedar Hill ISD.
Bobby Burns, Superintendent of Carrollton Farmers Branch ISD.
Bobby Laborde, Assistant Superintendent representing DeSoto ISD.
Good morning. I'm Matt Bowles. I'm a financial advisor and investment banker appointed by the comptroller.
Good morning. My name is Selena Miller with Whitley Penn, and I'm the designated CPA or Certified Public Accountant appointed by the comptroller.
Thank you very much. And I'm Michael Hinojosa, Superintendent of Dallas ISD, and I'm the interim chair. At this moment, we will now be administered the oath of office. So I will ask Kate Gully, who will come forward and administer the oath of office. And we will ask all of the committee members to stand. We're all going to be sworn in, and we'll follow Kay's direction.
Would you please stand and raise your right hand and repeat after me? I state your name, please.
I, Michael Hinojosa,
do solemnly swear or affirm.
Do solemnly swear or affirm
that I will faithfully execute the duties.
That I will faithfully execute the duties
of the Office of Dissolution Committee.
Of the Office of Dissolution Committee.
Appointed by the Comptroller of Public Accounts.
Appointed by the Comptroller of Public Accounts.
For the state of Texas.
For the state of Texas.
And will to the best of my ability.
And will to the best of my ability.
Preserve.
Protect.
And defend. The Constitution and laws.
The Constitution and laws.
Of the United States.
Of the United States.
And of this state.
And of this state.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations. Each of you has an oath of office form on your desk. Would you please sign it and leave it on your desk? And I need you to sign the notary book before you leave. Thank you.
At this time, we will have the election of officers. Committee members, this is the portion of the meeting where you elect your officers. As we begin the vote, I want to point out that the first person to receive a majority of the vote ends the voting process for that position. We have two positions, chair and vice chair. Each nomination will be voted as a separate item, meaning the committee members can vote once for each nomination until the candidate receives a majority of the votes, thus ending the vote for that position. If no majority is obtained, we will continue to the next name. If no nominee receives a majority, nominations for the same position will open again with the same names or possible additions. All of those in favor will raise their hands. All of those opposed will raise their hands. Those wishing to abstain may do so. Any questions about the process? No questions about the process. Nominations are now in order for the office of committee chair.
Mr. Reasonable Chair,
Yes.
I would like to nominate Dr. Mike Moses as Chair of the Dissolution Committee.
Dr. Mike Moses has been nominated as chair of the Dissolution Committee. Are there other nominations? Are there other nominations? Hearing none, Dr. Mike Moses is now nominated. Hearing no other nominations, I now declare Dr. Mike Moses, no, I don't think, not for nominations, we don't need to say. With only one person being nominated, we now declare Dr. Mike Moses by acclamation as the chair of the Dissolution Committee. I will now pass the gavel to Dr. Moses. Congratulations.
Thank you, Dr. Hinojosa. I noticed you wanted to pass that pretty quickly. Again, members, thank you for your time and thank you for the vote. And I know we're here to take care of some business that the voters of this county have stated their preference. While everyone may not agree, or they may agree, our job is before us, and I know we want to do that well. I'm very interested in making sure that we have a process that ensures good stewardship, and that's why we're all here. I also want to be sure that we have one that is fair to everyone concerned. And lastly, I think we all recognize that safety for the school children that this organization serves is paramount, and above all else, that's what we want. We need to elect a vice chair, and so at this time, nominations are now in order for the office of vice chair. Do I have a nomination? That excited about it, huh?
Mr. Chairman, I'd nominate Sandra Hayes, Vice Chair, if she's willing to serve.
Sandra Hayes has been nominated. Are there other nominations?
Jump in.
Hearing no other nominations, the nominations are closed. Carlos, do we need to vote on that, or are we simply by acclamation?
There's no other nominations.
No other nominations, then Sandra has been elected Vice Chairman by acclamation. Congratulations. I'll try to make sure that I'm here, but be ready.
Yes, I'd appreciate that you'd be here.
We have other business to conduct. I think there is an agenda that is before you. I want to thank Dr. Hinojosa and his staff for helping make some preparations for the meeting, as well as the staff here, and for the courtesy that has been shown in getting us ready. We have some business. I'm going to probably ask that the board allow us to take some things out of order. This morning we are honored to have with us Senator Don Huffines. Senator Huffines represents a major part of Dallas County and has been very actively involved in authorship of the legislation that we are here to enact. So I'd like to call upon him to bring us any comments that he might like to at this time. Senator Huffines, welcome.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mike, and welcome everybody to this Dissolution Committee. I do have a letter I'd like to pass out so everybody can take a look at that at your leisure. But I'm really here to thank you. To thank you for being able to spend your time. Spending your time. It's very magnanimous of you. I know the monetary rewards are zero, so but it really is. You guys represent the finest school districts in the state of Texas and the finest school districts in the country, and it's a real magnanimous thing you're doing here for this Dissolution Committee. I will point out a couple of things I would like for you to, just in my opinion, to focus on, and that is, of course, to eliminate the assets, sell the assets as soon as possible, and to use that money to pay down the debt on the buses. so we can make sure the buses are distributed out as lien-free as possible to the ISDs. And we can also roll off the tax rate as soon as possible. The other thing I want to point out is to be sure and work with existing bus drivers. You know, most of the bus drivers are doing an excellent job out there. They're working to feed their families, and I'm just encouraging you guys to keep them on the list and make sure they're hired and we have a smooth transition as possible. And also, just real quickly, my office is always open. I'm available to help any way I can, and I encourage you to reach out for any questions on the legislation, to reach out to the Attorney General or to my office. And thanks again. Thank you so much for your time you're going to be spending.
Thank you, Senator Huffines. We appreciate your coming and giving us some direction. I would also like to underscore what Senator Huffines has said about the employees. I said in my earlier comments that we're very interested in fairness for all, and that certainly is children first, but the employees of this organization, we give honor to your service. There is no one here that wants to do anything other than have a fair dissolution, and one that benefits the students and also to the greatest extent possible the employees of this organization. So we will certainly keep in mind Senator Huffines' comments, and I hope we can also keep those kinds of thoughts in mind as well. We have an executive session, a closed session, in order to go and talk about the employment of a chief administrator, which I think we would all agree we'd like to get to pretty quickly to help do this. I have some question in my mind as to whether we might want to, before we make that step, hear from an attorney with regard to the perhaps the salient points of the legislation that we might want to know as we consider who needs to be the chief administrative officer. Does anyone have a thought on that? Would you like to move forward with the talking about a chief administrator? Or would you like to hear a little bit about the legislation and what we need to be thinking about going forward?
Mr. Chairman, I think a little briefing on the legislation would be appropriate and in order. Thank you. I'd welcome that myself.
Before we deliberate in closed session, I think that might be helpful. And Carlos Lopez with Thompson and Horton is here, and a little later in the meeting we will certainly talk, I'm sure, about legal counsel, but Carlos has kindly agreed to come and give us a little bit of an update or a briefing on the legislation and some of the things we need to be mindful about. So, Carlos, if you don't mind, we'll let you kind of, yes, sir.
For the benefit of the committee members, there are copies of the bills in your blue packet, so there's a lot of material, collateral material regarding this topic in your blue folder. So he may be referring to some of those items, and it's just about everything that you might need is in that folder. And I want to thank my staff for helping prepare that for your consideration as well.
And I want to say the same again. Really appreciate. I see some good people I've had the privilege to work with, and I really appreciate all the work that Dr. Hinojosa and the staff have done. Carlos?
Thank you, Chairman Moses. Good morning, everybody on the committee and members of the audience as well. Let me just, I guess I'll just start with try to clear up or give some light on one issue that came up during this process, which was that there's two bills, right? There's the 1566 and then there's the 2605, 2065. So we were on some phone calls with the comptroller's office who appointed everybody on the committee, because one of the things, the first things they had to figure out was, well, one bill says one thing about how many people are on the committee and exactly who is on the committee, and then the other bill says something different. There was a back and forth. I won't go into the details because we're past that now. This is a little bit water under the bridge, but there was a little back and forth about which bill prevailed, which one was passed later in time. A lot of technical arguments, a lot of lawyers arguing with each other about what should happen there, and what the comptroller, and it didn't matter what I thought. It mattered what the comptroller thought, and ultimately what the AG would think. So pretty quickly a consensus came about that There's not a lot of conflict between the two. There's only just really a couple of areas where they even say anything different. I'll go through those with you so we can look at them. But the main one, of course, was who is going to be on the committee and how many people. And the comptroller decided that even though one bill said had basically less people on the committee, it didn't say that they can only appoint those people. And so what they said is, look, there's no facial conflict here between these. We can put those people on the committee and other people on the committee that the other bill allowed for. And so that's what ended up happening. That's a little bit about, sausage being made. I don't know how much of that y'all want to know, but that's how y'all got here. So it is the product of a consensus. There were discussions with the AG's office, not officially, right, but there were discussions with high-level folks there to make sure that the comptroller was doing it in a way that ultimately was going to be in accordance with what the AG presumably would decide if there was an issue later. So that's how we got to this committee being appointed and being embodied. So that's one thing. The only other area where they're different, we can go through if you'd like, but I think what we can do is let's just go through it real quickly, and where there's a difference, I'll point it out. So what is the committee supposed to do? Well, the first thing is it's responsible for all financial decisions. And this is not me editorializing, I'm just reading straight from the bill. The committee is responsible for all financial decisions for what used to be the County Board of Education or the Board of County School Trustees that was abolished by the Act, including asset distribution and payment of all debt obligations. Okay. Then it talks about who's going to be on the committee, harmonized with the other bill, 2065. The committee is subject to open meetings requirements. That's in there, along with public information requirements. Everyone in this room, I think, is used to that and is involved with entities that are subject to the open meetings requirements of Chapter 551. So that's why we posted it, and it'll run in that sense a lot like the organizations that you all are related with. The members of the committee, sadly, may not receive compensation for all of the time that they'll be putting in here. As Senator Huffines mentioned, you will be reimbursed, can be reimbursed for actual and necessary expenses. Then the Dissolution Committee shall determine the manner in which all assets, liabilities, contracts, and services of the Board of County School Trustees that was abolished by the Act are divided, transferred, or discontinued. So it's a pretty broad mandate. I mean, it's, I don't think, now I'm editorializing. I don't think the confusion or any vagueness is based on what's in the Act. It maybe is based on what's not written here. My take on it is you've been given a wide berth as the management, you're the management committee. A lot of these things are going to mean whatever y'all decide they mean. Okay. The Dissolution Committee shall create a sinking fund to deposit all the money that's received in the abolishment of each of the Board of Trustees for the payment of all debts, so sinking fund. The committee shall continue, this is obviously one of the main points, right, operative. The committee shall continue providing transportation services. And that's something that's key. Senator Huffines has mentioned it in his letter that he just distributed today. As one of the sponsors of the bill, he's urging the committee, this is just him talking, right? But he is urging the committee to take a very narrow view of what that means. In other words, to not expand it to say, well, indirectly related to transportation services, right? Like we lawyers like to do. So keep it very kind of stay in your lane type of advice, I guess, coming from Senator Huffines, if you will, with regard to continuing to provide transportation services to the component districts for the 2017-18 school year. The committee shall maintain current operations and personnel needed to provide the transportation services. So again, limited to the transportation services. At the end of the year, at the end of 2017-18 school year, the buses, vehicles, and service centers shall be transferred to the participating districts in proportionate shares equal to the amount of buses currently assigned to each district. I think most of the folks that have been involved in the planning for this know that one of the big issues is let's get those VIN numbers or whatever other way it's going to be used, and let's figure out who has what and get organized and figure out at the end of all of this, because the goal of this, of course, is to provide the services in the meantime, but ultimately the goal of this is to end it and stop providing the service and start doing it a different way. So The Dissolution Committee shall audit and confirm assignment of buses by VIN or some other agreed-upon means, so it's up to you all. Final distribution and assignment of the assets will be not later than September 1, 2018, at no cost to the districts. The idea is to have this be cost-free to the district as much as possible. They may employ, for the 2017-18 school year, one person to assist in the abolishment. One issue that was already asked about is, if it says you can do one, does that mean you can do more than one? Because it doesn't say that you can only do one. So that's an issue that I think will be coming up. The participating district with the largest number of students has the right to buy, first refusal to buy the administrative building. The ad valorem tax, this is obviously something that's been discussed and has been out there. The ad valorem tax that's been assessed shall continue to be assessed by the county on behalf of the board for the purpose of paying the principal and interest on any bonds issued. One of the things that's in Senator Huffines' letter is also, again, urging reminding, I suppose, the committee that the tax is limited to paying off of bonds. He's arguing that should be done, try to prioritize that and get that done as quickly as possible so that that tax gets off the rolls for the citizens. Dissolution Committee shall distribute the assets that remain after discharge of the liabilities in proportionate shares. Again, similar. The Dissolution Committee shall, as a lawyer, I always was trained to focus a lot when you see the word shall, as opposed to may or might, shall or must, liquidate board assets as necessary to discharge board liabilities and facilitate the distribution of assets. This is interesting. The chief financial officer and financial advisor for the County Board of Education or Board of Trustees shall provide assistance to this committee in abolishing the County Board of Education or Board of County School Trustees. I'm not sure people had focused on that before. TEA shall provide assistance to the committee in the distribution of the assets, liabilities, contracts, and services of the board that was abolished. And of course, this committee is abolished on the date that all the debt obligations of the entity have been distributed, and that the debts are paid in full, and that the assets have been distributed to the component school districts. There's only a couple of areas where the second bill, I don't think they conflict, but they just when it talks about how we measure the proportionality, the second bill, the 2065, has dates in there as to when that's determined. So those are the highlights and the lowlights, I guess.
Okay, thank you very much. I have a number of questions, but I'll ask first. Members, are there any questions you would like to ask Carlos? Matt?
I have a quick question,
Okay.
yes.
You just raise your hand so I'll see you and I'll recognize you. Go ahead,
All right,
please.
thank you, Mr. Chairman. With regards to the financial advisor, is there an existing contract with an outside financial advisory firm at this point, or is that something we'll discuss later?
You mean does DCS have?
Yes.
Yeah,
I'd
be guessing.
Yeah, I think we're gonna, I had on there is that we are to receive assistance from the CFO and the financial advisor. Is that what you're talking about?
Correct.
Are those individuals here today? Does anyone know? Okay, well, later in the meeting, we might, that was on my list too. So
Okay.
we'll get, that's a question
Thank you.
to get answered. Other questions? Matt, do you have any other questions?
No, sir, I don't.
Okay. Anyone else have questions?
Chairman Moses?
Yes, sir.
You know, Dallas County did provide other services.
Yes, sir.
Besides transportation.
Right.
So obviously, I think this committee has to address those additional services, school resource officers, crossing guards, et cetera. So I think the committee has to have some direction in how those are going to be dissolved as well. So.
Well, I agree, and I think later in the meeting, we've got an item that will allow us probably to talk about those further. I think we're also going to have to balance that in terms of what we've heard this morning from Senator Huffines and what council has shared with us, but I agree, those are issues that are going to be before us, and we're going to have to get those resolved. Any other questions?
Mr. Chair?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I do have a question that perhaps the legal counsel can provide an answer to this one. So tell me what proportionate shares means. I see in 1566, the distribution of the buses, vehicles, those types of things are supposed to be transferred to all the participating component school districts in proportionate shares equal to the amount of buses currently assigned to each district at no cost to the district. So if there's any kind of liability on the buses as they are right now, what does that mean to school districts?
You have and I realize that you're giving us your best guess at this moment.
Well, and also, let me just say, before I answer any specific questions of the committee, let me just point out that I'm not counsel for the committee.
We understand, and we appreciate just the
So I'm happy.
update.
As of right this second, I represent Dallas ISD.
Yes, sir.
So I'll give you Dallas ISD's lawyers' take on that for now. But my understanding, and I can certainly be wrong because I have not been involved in this as much as some of the other people sitting around this table, frankly. But one of the things that I think the committee knows that that's an issue, and I think that one of the things that the committee has, or the component districts, let's just say, in my experience as representing one of them, have struggled with is getting that information from DCS. I don't mean to speak ill of anybody that's not in the room, but I do know that there's been some concern operationally about the ability to get that information, and that once we have it, we'll kind of know what we're dealing with. I mean, candidly, I think that was one of the main frustrations that perhaps led to us being here. It's not so much what people knew, but what they thought they didn't know. And so I think we're going to have to cross that bridge when we get there. I think the idea behind the bill is to be done proportionally, in proportion to, so for example, if Irving ISD's percentage of DCS's revenue, because that's the service they were providing to Irving ISD, I'm going to make a number up, was 23%. I think the idea would be that it would remain proportional to that. But that's,
We got you.
That's up to y'all more than me.
Thank you so much.
Yes, sir. Dr. Hinojosa.
Mr. Chairman, similarly, I have some questions that obviously don't expect an answer today, but they will need to be resolved, and hopefully when we have a CEO rather quickly, they can start digging into how they're going to make recommendations to us for our consideration. And there are clauses, and I'm not an attorney, but there are clauses that in my opinion are contradictory, because it says at no cost to the districts is one of the clauses. What's it connected to? And then it talks about bonds. Well, they're not, we all think about bond elections, about voter authorized bonds, but these are debts that are rolled into something, and someone has to interpret what bond means. And so there are a lot of technical issues that we need some recommendations from a qualified staff and attorneys and people in that industry that will tell us what those things mean. So I think the sooner we can get someone on board to start doing the work, because we're all volunteers, we all have something else to do, I think that's going to be imperative that we have someone that can help guide us to interpreting and getting counsel who represents us, maybe, and instead of all the individual districts. So that's the point I wanted to make.
Good point. Good point. Let me say this. I probably led us down a path here, Carlos, that I didn't mean to put you on the spot. There's operation questions, which I think are going to have to be, as Dr. Hinojosa says, going to have to be dealt with by a chief administrative officer and bring us recommendations. I'm at this moment interested in governance questions of just the governing of this board, and I'd like to follow that up, Carlos. And again, I understand you're just kindly giving us information, not legal advice today, but as you just read that, I see that we are in existence until the debt is retired. Is that right?
That's the way that's what it says.
And we, as of this moment, don't know how long it would take to retire the debt. Well, I wanted all the volunteers to know that, so in case the debt took, how long it might take to retire that debt. When I read that, that jumped out at me because I think most of us had a kind of time-certain idea about this assignment, and so that'll be something I think we'll really want to look into. You also answered my question about as governance goes, about the employment of an individual. I'm later going to want to talk about the employment of outside counsel, and I'm also going to be interested in whether or not this organization has an errors and omissions policy for these board members, for all the board members, and whether that is applicable, the current errors and omissions policy is applicable to this board. I hope that we don't and this organization does not encounter future litigation. But in the event that it does, I want to be sure that our members and that everyone associated with the organization, that we are appropriately indemnified. Does that make sense? Does that make sense to the members?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thought some of us might be interested in that. So those are some things that, from the governance standpoint, I'd like to make sure that we are, that we've got that covered. Dr. Hinojosa.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, also, as from a governance perspective, I also want to call your attention to another interpretation we got very recently. So for the committee members, inside your blue folder, there's an email that was sent to our legislative consultant by the Controller's Office, who has been working with us regarding this appointment. It's an email, it's 2 pages, and for the record, I'm going to read it into the record because it does affect governance. And so here's the response. This is written by Vicki North, Deputy General Counsel, the Texas Controller of Public Accounts. Ms. Martinez, I've been asked to respond to your email regarding the use of designees by appointed members to the Dissolution Committee. The appointed superintendents are authorized to appoint a designee to attend meetings on their behalf. That designation is made independently by the superintendent and may change from time to time and does not require action by the controller. The language or superintendent's designee in the 2 Senate bills is similar language that authorizes other ex-officio members to use designees to participate in meetings on their behalf. For example, the Texas Racing Act uses similar language to authorize the Commissioner of Agriculture to use a designee to represent the Texas Racing Commission meetings. While we typically use this letter to the particular committee or board for the controller to name a designee, an alternate designee in some instances, will be able to attend attend committee and board meetings in place of the controller. So basically what they're saying is that we may have the opportunity to change designees. For example, if there are a lot of financial decisions going to be discussed, I'd like to have my CFO here. If there are operational considerations, I'd like to have my operations person representing me. And I think that gives superintendents wide latitude. What we need to get interpreted from a governance perspective is, do those individuals get sworn in when they come in and those kinds of things. So from a governance perspective, we'll need a further interpretation of this document. And it may also apply to the other appointees, depending on.
Yeah, I was going to ask, could I send a designee?
No, you're the chair.
And that begs the point of, I think, why we need, at some point in time today in the meeting a little later on, to talk about legal counsel, legal advice, actually, for this body, because those kinds of questions, obviously, we're going to need some direction on, and I think.
And you bring up another very important point, Dr. Moses. This entity exists for the balance of this year. After that, there won't be, I don't know, I think there may be quarterly meetings of a dissolution committee because there won't be much operational because the entity won't exist. So I think we need to think about that as well.
Right. Okay. Were there any other questions? I think we've probably we've got some information. Carlos, thank you very much too. I appreciate you being willing to come and share with us your insight with regard to the legislation. At this time, I'm going to call the board into a closed session as authorized by the Texas Open Meetings Act, Texas Government Code 551.071, 551.072, or 551.074. This board will retire to another room, so those here that are present, if you would like to remain, you're free to remain here. We're going to retire to another room. Does Dino know is Dino here? Well, if you'll lead us to a room where we can retire into executive session. Thank you very much.
Chairman Moses, are we allowed to take our general counsel with us to the closed session?
One of the items is consultation with counsel.
It's a good question, and I don't know. I don't think we're, at this moment, I think we're just going to be in executive session for purposes of talking about a chief administrative officer, and my preference would be just the board do that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I'm sorry. The time is 9:34. It's 11:20, and the Dissolution Committee has returned to open session. We have administrative action items to take. The first one of those is action item 5A, consideration and possible appointment of Chief Executive Officer. Do I hear any motions?
Mr. Chairman, I'd move that we appoint Alan King as our CEO.
Motion has been made that Alan King be appointed CEO of this, I guess, whatever we are now, Chief Executive Officer of the Dissolution Committee. Dr. Burns.
Yes. Chairman Moses, I'd like to second that motion.
Second has been made. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. Alan King has been employed to serve as the Chief Executive Officer of this Dissolution Committee. Congratulations, Mr. King. We appreciate your willingness to serve. Would you join us here at the dais? We know that this is not going to be an easy assignment. We know that there is much work to be done. We appreciate your willingness to work with this organization, Dallas County Schools, and work with the school districts to resolve many of the pending issues. I want to say again, and I think you know this, and our committee members know this, that we are very interested in the stewardship of the organization and making sure that the stewardship is outstanding. We're also very interested in the safety of boys and girls, and we're also interested in the fairness to the employees that are here and the employees that work here. For those employees that work here, I would say just a quick word, and that is we do appreciate you. We know that there are going to be changes. We think that the best reference that anyone has is to do a great job where we all are now. And if we all strive to do what we are doing now to the best of our ability, then I think things will work out in a positive way. We want that for everyone. And again, knowing that there are some things that will not be easy, but we will endeavor to do the very best that we can to make sure that everything is done as fairly and transparently as possible. Having said that, we have another item on the agenda. Item 5B is consideration and possible selection of a law firm to support the Dissolution Committee. Any thoughts?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to nominate David Thompson as counsel to the committee.
Would that be a motion for David or for Thompson and Horton?
Thompson and Horton, yes, sir.
Thompson and Horton Law Firm to represent this committee. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a second. The Thompson and Horton Law Firm has been nominated to represent this committee, knowing that we are a committee that needs help and needs some advice. I don't know that this has ever happened in Texas before, but we think we probably are in need of counsel. I want to fully disclose to the board that you all can make your own disclosure. I think David represents some of the districts here. I know David Thompson very well. I have done work with David Thompson. But I applaud Carlos and the other members of the law firm. And obviously have a great deal of confidence, a lot because of their work and with schools, public schools, and also because of their work with the legislature and their knowledge of school finance. Anybody else want to make any other statements? Dr. Hinojosa.
Mr. Chairman, Dr. Moses, I too want to disclose that Dallas ISD does a lot of work with Thompson and Horton, and we're very pleased with their work, and he's been around education for a long time, very highly respected.
Anyone else need to say anything? We have a motion and a second on the floor to employ Thompson and Horton as the law firm to represent and advise the Dissolution Committee. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? That employment of Thompson and Horton has been approved to represent this Dissolution Committee. Of course, we appreciate your being here. Thank you very much, and we'll look forward to working with you and with David. And now that you have been employed, feel free to offer counsel.
Okay, I will.
Okay, good.
Feel free to ask questions.
All right, we will. Moving on our agenda to the general discussion items. 6A is overview and discussion of legislative charge of Dissolution Committee. I think Carlos has already given us the, pretty much our charge this morning, given us the kind of the summary of that. I know that Mr. King has also had a chance to previously look at some of the work that goes on here and is familiar with that. As sobering as some of this may be, I think that we need to give him an opportunity to maybe comment or at least provide us any briefing that he would like. Mr. King.
Thank you very much. Is the mic on?
Yes. Yes, sir.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity to serve the district, to serve you. My goal is to dissolve our assets in an appropriate manner and find a place for all our employees at the end of this job. So I'll be working real hard with all the districts and all our employees so that we do a good job, so that hopefully you will hire all our existing employees, and I'll be working real hard to achieve that. Our current financial situation is pretty bleak. I pulled the last 3 audit reports, and if you look at our net position for the 5 years ending June 30th, 2016, our net position has decreased $45.6 million. And right now, at June 30, 2016, it was $30.1 million. $21 million of that $30 million is tied up in an intangible asset. So upon dissolution, I don't know if that has any value or not. So our net position at June 30th, 2016 had declined, and over the 3-year period, it declined a ton. Some of the factors that have been contributing to the net position decrease, our total debt from 2000 for the 5-year period ending 2016 has gone from $36 million to $147 million. During that same 5-year period, 3 years, the general fund actually spent more money than they received, and the net loss for that 5-year period was $5 million. So in the general fund, in addition to debt going up, we spent $5 million more than we had. And if you look at the audited financial statements for the 3 years ending 2015-16, the district had transferred $28 million to the Stop Arm program. And if you look at the financial statements that they presented to the board at the last meeting, another $14 million or so was due. So during this time period, we've transferred about $40 million to the Stop Arm program. Indirect costs, not related directly to transportation, have grown from $13 million to $23 million. $5 million of that's related to crossing guards, which were also hired as part of the Stop Arm program. Debt payments on an annual basis went from $2 million to $11 million. And the percent of our budget, general fund budget, spent for transportation has decreased from 80% to 71%. Some of the concerns I have with the current budget that we'll need to look at is the current adopted budget approved by the board has a deficit of $8 million. They approved a budget amendment number 1 recently to increase that deficit to another $700 million. And an engagement of an audit firm did not occur until the last meeting. So the June 30th financial statements, the audit has not begun because an auditor was not engaged until here recently. And that is a very brief overview of where we're at.
That is, as I said, sobering. Any questions you'd like to ask today of Mr. King? I think that gives us all a pretty good idea of the challenges that are ahead and the questions that must be answered. And we'll look forward to receiving your thoughts and recommendations with regard to those at our future meetings.
Yes, sir.
If there's no other thoughts or questions on that particular item, I'm going to move ahead one last time. Anybody else? If not, I think you've, on item B, that you've heard the current financial status. Is there anything else you would like to add? Anything else, Alan, you want to add to that?
No, sir.
Okay. kind of given us that. With that in mind, the next item on the agenda is the canvassing the November 7th, 2017 election. I have been advised that that election, those results were actually canvassed yesterday, and that those were entered into the record, and the order declaring the results of the proposition election with the results has already been entered by Dallas County Schools, so there is no further need with regard to any real discussion or action as it pertains to the canvassing of the November 7th, 2017 election. Communications protocol. I think that probably is to be established, but since we have taken action to employ a CEO, I think we all know that if we have questions, thoughts, or comments, that those probably need to come to that individual. If you would like to direct questions or comments, excuse me, to me, I'll be glad to receive those, but I will probably immediately pass those on for his recommendation and resolution. I don't know if there's a specific thought that you have with regard to need for communications that you'd like to voice at this time, but any member want to speak to that subject? Yes, sir.
Mr.
Dr.
Chairman,
Hosa.
a lot of us are going to be asked to comment, and obviously this is premature. Mr. King starting today, and obviously you started today, and there are a lot of questions that people can't answer, and then so I just want to make sure that everybody understands that this is just the beginning period, and we're getting questions about next year, and districts haven't made decisions about how they're going to operate next year. So I just want to assure everybody that we have some strong leadership in you and Mr. King, and that this is an iterative process, and we don't know enough yet to make a whole lot of promises or decisions, but we know that we're serious, we got good people in place, and that, it's going to be a little uncomfortable until we discover some of those things. And so I know that I am presenting a plan to my board next November the 30th. So we'll start talking about some of our parameters. I'm sure that other districts are doing RFPs and other things. So there's a lot of unknowns right now. I know everybody wants certainty right now, but it's almost impossible to deliver that. And so thank you for your leadership, and we will be referring them to you, but a lot of things are out of our control. Our board members can't comment because they don't know anything at this time, but I appreciate you at least putting it on the table, and that we assure everybody that we just need to, and I am very proud that since the election, everything has run well. I check every day, and I'm told that we're getting things handled. And so I do appreciate the way all of the current employees that are out in the field, and also on staff here, have worked with people to make things continue to run. And so, but I just want to tell people we got to be patient. I know this is the holiday season. We want some certainty, but we can't give you a lot of certainty for at least for a couple of months until everybody figures out where they're going next.
Thank you, Dr. Hinojosa. Those are great comments and well said. Other thoughts? Other thoughts? Okay, thank you very much. We're going to go ahead and conduct the meeting here. Other thoughts? Anybody else? I know there's a lot of questions. We are very sensitive to those, and we'll be glad to, at the appropriate time, when recommendations are made to this organization and to this committee, we'll be glad to consider those. I'd like to move to the next item, which is future meeting dates and times. I know this is going to be impossible, so I'm just going to throw dates out that I've already looked at. I hope you can be there. I know that those that work in the school districts are usually going to be working it somewhere, but I'm going to go ahead and propose some dates, at least for the next 4 months, and see, and I hope you can hit as many of these as you can. If you cannot, then certainly designees are permissible. I would propose that we meet again on December 4th, and that we have meetings on December 4th, December 18th. We have meetings on January 8th, January 22nd, February 12th, February 26th, March 12th, and March 26th. I will repeat, December 4th, December 18th, January 8th, January 22nd, February 12th, February 26th, March 12th, March 26th. For the most part, except December, those are the second and fourth Mondays of the month. And I realize again that everybody could have conflicts, but I think if we started trying to hammer out dates that we can all agree on here, I think we're going to have a real challenge. I would simply, I don't know, I will throw this one out for you. I know one of our board members had to get up this morning at 3:30 or 4 to catch an airplane to come here at 5:15 or so. So I don't know a good starting time. I would like to start in the mornings, but I'm sensitive to some of you, your transportation needs, travel needs, driving needs. Is 9 o'clock still a good time? Would you rather do 9:30? Rather do 10? Is there a preference with regard to that? Go
I'll
ahead.
throw out 10, Chairman Moses. 10
You like
o'clock.
10?
10 o'clock.
The 10 o'clock, we'll try 10 o'clock at the, at our next meeting on December the 4th. Mr. King, I think at that time it'll be your challenge, and I'll be glad to spend some time talking with you about forming up an agenda and bringing items to our attention that we need to begin to discuss and/or take action with regard to. So I know a lot of people are not going to, next week's Thanksgiving week, and I know a lot of districts aren't closed. There's a week after that before the next meeting, and again, I know this is only probably about an 18-hour day job, but we'll be ready on the 4th to at least discuss what you're ready to discuss with us, or what items and what topics need to come before us.
Yes, sir.
Sound okay?
Yes, sir.
And also, that'll give you time to consult with our council and talk with Carlos and David about anything that we needed to talk about going forward. 10 o'clock, December 4th is our next meeting, and I think I gave you dates that at least we should shoot for the next 3 or 4 months. I kind of like to get things on the calendar, and I know you're all busy, and the more advanced notice we give, particularly those of you who are not associated with school districts, it helps. Those of you with the districts, I know you have schedules, but hopefully you can work with us on those dates, or your designees can. Want to give anybody else a chance to make any other comment? Any other observation? You're out of order. We're not taking public statements today. Anyone else on the board like to comment? With that, I want to thank Dr. Hinojosa for all the efforts you've made to help get this organized. Dino Harris, I want to thank you. Kay Gully, Jack Elrod, all the DISD staff. Carlos, I hope you'll have a chance to visit, and you and the firm will have a chance to visit with Mr. King and have us ready for our next meeting. I appreciate everyone and your time this morning, and we'll look forward to seeing you at our next meeting. We stand adjourned. Thank you very much.